Section 32 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Yuqing in Singapore. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 2, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bancroft Jolly. Chapter 41, Part 1. Jia Baoyu tastes tea in the Longcui Monastery. Old goody Liu gets drunk and falls asleep in the Yihong court. Old goody Liu, so the story goes, exclaimed, while making signs with both hands. The flower dropped and a huge melon formed, to the intense amusement of all the inmates, who burst into a boisterous fit of laughter. In due course, however, she drank the closing cup. Then she made another effort to evoke merriment. To speak the truth today, she smilingly observed, my hands, my feet are so rough, and I've had so much wine that I must be careful, or else I might, by a slip of the hand, break the porcelain cups. If you have got any wooden cups, you'd better produce them. It wouldn't matter then if even they were to slip out of my hands and drop on the ground. This joke excited some more mirth, but Lady Feng, upon hearing this, speedily put on a smile. Well, she said, if you really want a wooden one, I'll fetch you one at once. But there's just one word I'd like to tell you beforehand. Wooden cups are not like porcelain ones. They go in sets, so you'll have to do the right thing and drink from every cup of the set. I just now simply spoke in jest about those cups in order to induce them to laugh. Old goody Liu, at these words, mused within herself. But who would have thought that she actually had some of the kind? I've often been to the large households of village gentry on a visit, and even been to banquets there and seen both gold cups and silver cups, but never have I beheld any wooden ones about. Ah, of course, they must, I expect, be the wooden bowls used by the young children. Their object must be to inveigle me to have a couple of bowlfuls more than is good for me, but I don't mind it. The wine is, verily, like honey, so if I drink a little more, it won't do me any harm. Bringing this train of thought to a close, fetch them, she said aloud. We'll talk about them by and by. Lady Feng then directed Feng Er to go and bring the set of 10 cups made of bamboo roots from the bookcase in the front inner room. Upon hearing her orders, Feng Er was about to go and execute them, when Yuan Yang smilingly interposed. I know those 10 cups of yours, she remarked. They are small. What's more, a while back you mentioned wooden ones, and if you have bamboo ones brought now, it won't look well, so we'd better get from our place that set of 10 large cups, scooped out of whole blocks of aspen roots, and pour the contents of all 10 of them down her throat. Yes, that would be much better, Lady Feng smiled. The cups were then actually brought by a servant at the direction of Yuan Yang. At the sight of them, old goody Liu was filled with surprise as well as with admiration. Surprise, as the 10 formed one set going in gradation from large to small, the largest being amply of the size of a small basin, the smallest even measuring 2 of those she held in her hand. Admiration, as they were all alike, engraved in perfect style, with scenery, trees, and human beings, and bore inscriptions in the grass character, as well as the seal of the writer. It will be enough, she consequently shouted with alacrity, if you give me that small one. There's no one, Lady Feng laughingly insinuated, with the capacity to tackle these. Hence, it is that not a soul can pluck up courage enough to use them. But as you, old Sam, asked for them, and they were fished out, after ever so much trouble, you're bound to do the proper thing and drink out of each, one after the other. Old goody Liu was quite taken aback. I daren't, she promptly demurred. My dear lady, do let me off. Dowager Lady Jia, Mrs. Xue, and Madame Wang were quite alive to the fact that a person advanced in years as she was could not be gifted with such powers of endurance, and they hastened to smilingly expostulate. To speak is to speak, and a joke is a joke, but she mayn't take too much, they said. Let her just empty this first cup and have done. Ah, mi tuofu, ejaculated old goody Liu. I'll only have a small cupful, and put this huge fellow away. and take it home and drink at my leisure." At this remark, the whole company once more gave way to laughter. Yuan Yang had no alternative but to give in, and she had to bid a servant fill a large cup full of wine. Old goody Liu laid hold of it with both hands and raised it to her mouth. "Gently a bit," old Lady Jia and Mrs. Xue shouted. "Mind you don't choke." Mrs. Xue then told Lady Feng to put some viands before her. "Goody Liu," smiled Lady Feng, "tell me the name of anything you fancy, and I'll bring it and feed you." "What names can I know?" old goody Liu rejoined. "Everything is good." "Bring some eggplant and salt fish for her," Dowager Lady Jia suggested with a smile. Lady Feng, upon hearing this suggestion, complied with it by catching some eggplant and saltfish with 2 chopsticks and putting them into old goody Liu's mouth. "You people," she smiled, "daily feed on eggplants, so taste these of ours and see whether they've been nicely prepared or not." "Don't be making a fool of me," old goody Liu answered smilingly. "If eggplants can have such flavour, we ourselves needn't sow any cereals, but confine ourselves to growing nothing but eggplants." "They are really eggplants," one and all protested. "She's not pulling your leg." Old goody Liu was amazed. "If these be actually eggplants," she said, "I've uselessly eaten them so long. But, my lady, do give me a few more. I'd like to taste the next mouthful carefully." Lady Feng brought her, in every deed, another lot, and put it in her mouth. Old goody Liu munched for long with particular care. "There is, it's true, something about them of the flavour of eggplant," she laughingly remarked. "Yet they don't quite taste like eggplants. But tell me how they are cooked, so that I may prepare them in the same way for myself." "There's nothing hard about it," Lady Feng answered, smiling. "You take the newly cut eggplants and pare the skin off. All you want then is some fresh meat. You hash it into fine mince and fry it in chicken fat. Then you take some dried chicken meat and mix it with mushrooms, new bamboo shoots, sweet mushrooms, dried bean curd paste, flavoured with 5 spices, and every kind of dry fruits, and you chop the whole lot into fine pieces. You then bake all these things in chicken broth until it's absorbed, when you fry them to finish in sweet oil, and adding some oil made of the grains of wine, you place them in a porcelain jar and close it hermetically. At any time that you want any to eat, all you have to do is to take out some and mix it with some roasted chicken, and there it is all ready." Old goody Liu shook her head and put out her tongue. "My Buddha's ancestor!" she shouted. "One wants about 10 chickens to prepare this dish. It isn't strange, then, that it has this flavour." Saying this, she quietly finished her wine. But still she kept on minutely scrutinizing the cup. "Haven't you yet had enough to satisfy you?" Lady Feng smiled. "If you haven't, well, then drink another cup." "Dreadful!" eagerly exclaimed old goody Liu. "I shall be soon getting so drunk that it will be the very death of me. I was only looking at it as I admire pretty things like this. But what a trouble it must have cost to turn out." "Have you done with your wine?" Yuan Yang laughingly inquired. "But, after all, what kind of wood is this cup made of?" "It isn't to be wondered at," old goody Liu smiled, "that you can't make it out, miss. However could you people, who live inside golden doors and embroidered apartments, know anything of wood? We have the whole day long the trees in the woods as our neighbours. When weary, we use them as our pillows and go to sleep on them. When exhausted, we sit with our backs leaning against them. When, in years of dearth, we feel the pangs of hunger, we also feed on them. Day after day, we see them with our eyes. Day after day, we listen to them with our ears. Day after day, we talk of them with our mouths. I am therefore well able to tell whether any wood be good or bad, genuine or false. Do let me then see what it is." As she spoke, she intently scanned the cup for a considerable length of time. "Such a family as yours," she then said, "could on no account own mean things. Any wood that is easily procured wouldn't even find a place in here. This feels so heavy as I weigh it in my hands that if it isn't aspen it must, for certainty, be yellow cedar." Her rejoinder amused every one in the room, but then they perceived an old matron come up. After asking permission of Dowager Lady Jia to speak, "The young ladies," she said, have caught the Lotus Fragrance Pavilion, and they request your commands as to whether they should start with the rehearsal at once or tarry a while." "I forgot all about them," old lady Jia promptly cried with a smile. "Tell them to begin rehearsing at once." The matron expressed her obedience and walked away. Presently became audible the notes of the panpipe and double flute, now soft, now loud, and the blended accents of the pipe and life. So balmy did the breeze happen to be, and the weather so fine, that the strains of music came wafted across the arbours and over the stream, and, needless to say, conduced to exhilarate their spirits and to cheer their hearts. Unable to resist the temptation, Baoyu was the first to snatch a decanter and to fill a cup for himself. He quaffed it with one breath. Then, pouring another cup, he was about to drain it, when he noticed that Madame Wang too was anxious for a drink, and that she bade a servant to bring a warm supply of wine. With alacrity, Baoyu crossed over to her, and, presenting his own cup, he applied it to Madame Wang's lips. His mother drank 2 sips, while he held it in his hands, but on the arrival of the warm wine, Baoyu resumed his seat. Madame Wang laid hold of the warm decanter and left the table, while the whole party quitted their places at the banquet, and Mrs. Xue too rose to her feet. "Take over that decanter from her," Dowager Lady Jia promptly shouted to Li Wan and Lady Feng, "and press her aunt into a seat. We shall all then feel at ease." Hearing this, Madame Wang surrendered the decanter to Lady Feng and returned to her seat. "Let's all have a couple of cups of wine," old Lady Jia laughingly cried. "It's capital fun today." With this proposal, she laid hold of a cup and offered it to Mrs. Xue, turning also towards Xiangyun and Baochai. "You 2 cousins," she added, "must also have a cup. Your cousin Lin can't take much wine, but even she mustn't be let off." While pressing them, she drained her cup. Xiangyun, Baochai, and Daiyu then had their drink. But about this time old goody Liu caught the strains of music, and, being already under the influence of liquor, her spirits became more and more exuberant, and she began to gesticulate and skip about. Her pranks amused Baoyu to such a degree that, leaving the table, he crossed over to where Daiyu was seated, and observed laughingly, "Just you look at the way old goody Liu is going on." "In days of yore," Daiyu smiled, "every species of animal commenced to dance the moment the sounds of music broke forth. She is like a buffalo now." This simile made her cousins laugh. But shortly the music ceased. "We've all had our wine," Mrs. Xue smilingly proposed, "so let's go and stroll about for a time. We can after that sit down again." Dowager Lady Jia herself was at the moment feeling a strong inclination to have a ramble. In due course, therefore, they all left the banquet and went with their old senior for a walk. Dowager Lady Jia, however, longed to take goody Liu along with her to help her dispel her ennui, so promptly seizing the old dame's hand in hers, they threaded their way as far as the trees, which stood facing the hill. After lolling about with her for a few minutes, "What kind of tree is this?" she went on to inquire of her. "What kind of stone is this? What species of flower is that?" Old goody Liu gave suitable reply to each of her questions. "Who would ever have imagined it?" she proceeded to tell Dowager Lady Jia. "Not only are all the human beings in the city grand, but even the birds are grand. Why, the moment these birds fly into your mansion, they also become beautiful things, and acquire the gift of speech as well." The company could not make out the drift of her observations. What birds get transformed into beautiful things and become able to speak? They felt impelled to ask. "Those perched on those gold stands under the veranda, with green plumage and red beaks, are parrots. I know them well enough," Goody Liu replied. "But those old black crows in the cages there have crests like phoenixes. They can talk too." One and all laughed, but not long elapsed before they caught sight of several waiting maids who came to invite them to a collation. "After the number of cups of wine I've had," old Lady Jia said, "I don't feel hungry. But never mind, bring the things here. We can nibble something at our leisure." The maids speedily went off and fetched 2 teapots, but they also brought a couple of small boxes with partitions. When they came to be opened and to be examined, the contents of each were found to consist of 2 kinds of viands. In the one were 2 sorts of steamed eatables. One of these was a sweet cake, made of lotus powder, scented with sunflower, the other being rolls with goose fat and fir cone seeds. The second box contained 2 kinds of fried eatables, one of which was small dumplings, about an inch in size. "What stuffing have they put in them?" Dowager Lady Jia asked. "They're with crabs inside," hastily rejoined the matrons. The robed mistress, at this reply, knitted her eyebrows. "These fat, greasy viands for such a time," she observed. "Who'll ever eat these things?" But finding, when she came to inspect the other kind, that it consisted of small fruits of flour, fashioned in every shape, and fried in butter, she did not fancy these either. She then, however, pressed Mrs. Xue to have something to eat, but Mrs. Xue merely took a piece of cake, while Dowager Lady Jia helped herself to a roll. But after tasting a bit, she gave the remaining half to a servant girl. Goody Liu saw how beautifully worked these small flower fruits were, made as they were in various colors and designs, and she took, after picking and choosing, one which looked like a peony. "The most ingenious girls in our village could not, even with a pair of scissors, cut out anything like this in paper," she exclaimed. "I would like to eat it, but I can't make up my mind to. I had better pack up a few and take them home and give them to them as specimens." Her remarks amused everyone. "When you start for home," Dowager Lady Jia said, "I'll give you a whole porcelain jar full of them, so you may as well eat these first, while they are hot." The rest of the inmates selected such of the fruits as took their fancy, but after they had helped themselves to 1 or 2, they felt satisfied. Goody Liu, however, had never before touched such delicacies. These were, in addition, made small, dainty, and without the least semblance of clumsiness, so when she and Pan Er had served themselves to a few of each sort, half the contents of the dish vanished. But what remained of them were then, at the instance of Lady Feng, put into 2 plates and sent, together with a petition box, to Wen Kuang and the other singing girls as their share. At an unexpected moment, they perceived the nurse come in with Dajie in her arms, and they all induced her to have a romp with them for a time. But while Dajie was holding a large pomelo and amusing herself with it, she casually caught sight of Pan Er with a Buddha hand. Dajie would have it. A servant girl endeavored to coax Pan Er to surrender it to her, but Dajie, unable to curb her impatience, burst out crying. It was only after the pomelo had been given to Pan Er, and that the Buddha's hand had, by dint of much humouring, been got from Pan Er and given to her, that she stopped crying. Pan Er had played quite long enough with the Buddha's hand, and had, at the moment, his 2 hands laden with fruits, which he was in the course of eating. When he suddenly besides saw how scented and round the pomelo was, the idea dawned on him that it was more handy for play, and, using it as a ball, he kicked it along and went off to have some fun, relinquishing at once every thought of the Buddha's hand. By this time Dowager Lady Jia and the other members had had tea, so leading off again Goody Liu, they threaded their way to the Longcui monastery. Miao Yu hastened to usher them in. On their arrival in the interior of the court, they saw the flowers and trees in luxuriant blossom. "Really," smiled old Lady Jia, "it's those people who devote themselves to an ascetic life and have nothing to do, who manage, by constant repairs, to make their places much nicer than those of others." As she spoke, she wended her steps towards the eastern hall. Miao Yu, with her face beaming with smiles, made way for her to walk in. "We've just been filling ourselves with wines and meats," Dowager Lady Jia observed, "and with the josses you've got in here, we shall be guilty of profanity. We'd better therefore sit here, but give us some of that good tea of yours, and we'll get off so soon as we have had a cup of it." Pao Yu watched Miao Yu's movements intently, when he noticed her laid hold of a small tea tray, fashioned in the shape of a peony, made of red carved lacquer, and inlaid with designs in gold representing a dragon ensconced in the clouds with the character longevity clasped in its jaws. A tray, which contained a small multicolored cup with cover, fabricated at the Cheng kiln and presented to his grandmother. "I don't care for Liu An tea," old lady Jia exclaimed. "I know it, but this is old Junmei," Miao Yu answered with a smile. Dowager Lady Jia received the cup. "What water is this?" she went on to inquire. "It's rain water, collected last year," Miao Yu added by way of reply. Old Lady Jia readily drank half a cup of the tea, and smiling, she proffered it to Goody Liu. "Just you taste this tea," she said. Goody Liu drained the remainder with one draught. "It's good, of course," she remarked laughingly, "but it's rather weak. It would be far better were it brewed a little stronger." Dowager Lady Jia and all the inmates laughed, but subsequently each of them was handed a thin, pure white covered cup, all of the same make, originating from the Quan kiln. Miao Yu, however, soon gave a tug at Baochai's and Daiyu's lapels, and both quitted the apartment along with her. But Baoyu too quietly followed at their heels. Spying Miao Yu show his two cousins into a side room, Baochai take a seat in the court, Daiyu seat herself on Miao Yu's brush mat, and Miao Yu herself approached a stove, fanned the fire, and boiled some water, with which she brewed another pot of tea. Baoyu walked in. "Are you bent upon drinking your own private tea?" he smiled. "Here you rush again to steal our tea!" The two girls laughed with one accord. "There's none for you!" But just as Miao Yu was going to fetch a cup, she perceived an old Taoist matron bring away the tea things, which had been used in the upper rooms. "Don't put that Cheng kiln teacup by," Miao Yu hastily shouted. "Go and put it outside!" Baoyu understood that it must be because old Goody Liu had drunk out of it that she considered it too dirty to keep. He then saw Miao Yu produce two other cups. The one had an ear on the side. On the bowl itself were engraved in 3 characters, "Calabash cup," in the plain square writing. After these followed a row of small characters in the true style, to the effect that the cup had been an article much treasured by Wang Kai. Next came a second row of small characters stating that in the course of the 4th moon of the 5th year of Yuanfeng of the Song dynasty, Su Shi of Meishan had seen it in the secret palace. This cup Miao Yu filled and handed to Baochai. End of section 32. Recording by Cao Xueqin in Singapore.